Welcome to the show. The following video is a re-upload from Macabregorium Labs, link in the description. We all have our preference of movies, whether they're animated or R-rated, but sometimes we don't want the story to end and aren't ready to say goodbye to our favorite characters, and that's why some of these properties get the animated series treatment. So these characters can go on playing out continuous stories and tales that didn't always sync up with their movie counterparts. My name is Bats, and I'll be your guide for today's video, where we're going to take a look at 13 examples of this treatment with a School of Boredom extra credit, 13 animated series based on movies. Number 13. Back at the Barnyard. In 2006, Paramount Pictures and Nickelodeon Movies brought us the CGI animated movie Barnyard, which was something of a coming-of-age story about a barnyard cow that must take over the farm after his father passes away. But luckily, this video is about animated series, so let's talk about Back at the Barnyard. This series had quite a few differences from its movie counterpart, and that, in our opinion, is what makes this series superior. The original voice cast for this one was changed, and the plot very different, because this one plays out more like a Saturday morning cartoon with very little drama. Instead, the series takes focus on Otis, now voiced by the always funny Chris Hardwick, and his barnyard pals as they get caught up in all sorts of goofy hijinks, usually revolving around playing pranks on humans, money-making schemes, or messing with Mrs. Beatty. There was a lot of versatility with this one, and we highly recommend it if you need a good, genuine laugh. Number 12. The Mask. This is a very interesting entry because it has several backgrounds. For starters, this property began as a comic book that probably wasn't as kid-friendly as either the movie or its animated series counterparts. The 1994 animated series closely follows the movie. This one has Stanley Ipkiss, or The Mask, voiced by the legendary Rob Paulsen. This series also shows The Mask as something of an oddball superhero while fighting a slew of comically flawed bad guys, as well as being accompanied by his trusty pal and dog Milo, as well as a new character, reporter Peggy Brandt. The series feels like a mixture of action superhero cartoons and Freakazoid. With its constant fourth wall breaks, edgy comedy, and violent content, what's not to want? We say if you liked the movie, be sure to go check this one out if you're able. Number 11. Dumb and Dumber. In 1994, the world was treated to a little movie called Dumb and Dumber. Then in 1995, the awesome Hanna-Barbera company treated the world to Dumb and Dumber, the animated series, which will be the second Jim Carrey movie turned cartoon on this list. This series featured Harry, Lloyd, and their pet beaver named Weenie as they travel around in their dog-shaped van going on nonsensical adventures that also fit in nicely with the Saturday morning cartoon style. Honestly, there isn't a whole lot to say about this one, but if you'd like to see these two goofballs go on a whole bunch of hilarious adventures in a cartoon without a point, then this one is a great choice. Number 10. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. This is actually a very strange two-part entry because Bill and Ted actually got two separate cartoon adaptations crammed into a single series. This show consisted of 2 seasons, with season 1 being made by the always amazing Hanna-Barbera and season 2 being made by the animation company DiC. Keanu Reeves, Alex Winters, and George Carlin all reprised their roles in this animated adaptation, but only for season 1. When DiC took over, the entire cast was replaced and some aspects of the show would be drastically changed. For example, while season 1 followed its source material rather well, the second season had the gall to introduce a non-canon character named Squint that was a phone booth that would allow the duo to travel within books, television shows, and the ability to shrink that would allow for travel in the human body. While both of the seasons were entertaining to varying degrees, Season 1 has everything going for it, but Season 2 was a little more than lacking. So as far as this one goes, we recommend the first season. It's totally righteous.
Excellent!
Number 9. Clerks, the animated series. We aren't going to be talking too much about this one. We're only going to discuss the fact it exists, because we will be covering it more in depth later on in a full School of Boredom lesson. In our opinion, this cartoon was amazing and well ahead of its time. The only drawback is that it only lasted for 6 episodes and can primarily only be found on DVD for a collector's price. Clerks the Animated Series featured all of the original cast and some pretty silly plot lines. Check it out if you're able, and be sure to check back for our School of Boredom lesson about Clerks the Animated Series.
We're almost there.
Why are we walking like this?
Number 8. Monsters vs. Aliens. In 2009, DreamWorks would release a movie called Monsters vs. Aliens about the daily happenings inside a super top secret military base, and of course I'm speaking of the one and only Area 50-something. Shows the lives of resident monsters and aliens within the base and the hijinks they endure in their day-to-day lives, usually caused by a disaster, alien threat, which is usually Coverton related, a new arrival, or some sort of experiment gone wrong. This show was a lot of fun, and each episode's title card had the look and feel of a 1950s horror movie. As you've probably figured out, it wouldn't be on this list if we didn't recommend it.
We're almost there.
Why are we walking like this?
Number 7. Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
Alrighty then.
In 1995, we were given another Jim Carrey movie turned cartoon with Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, the animated series. This show would run for 3 seasons, with the third being aired on Nickelodeon in 1999 and would be set as a direct sequel to the movies. This show was quite raunchy and a lot of fun. It would show the titular character going out to solve cases involving animals. Although this one took several liberties with the facts about said animals, it was still a fun, albeit strange entry. And as an added fun fact, Family Guy and American Dad creator Seth MacFarlane worked on this one as well as the Dumb and Dumber animated series. Number 6. Beetlejuice, the animated series. That's right, for this entry we're going to discuss the ghost with the most, none other than the one and only Beetlejuice. Unfortunately, this entry will also be pretty short because of its inclusion in the School of Boredom series. But here's the basics. If you have not seen this animated series, then all we want to know is why. Aside from being wildly different from the movie, this series would take focus on Beetlejuice and Lydia as they go on adventures that result in lessons being learned. The adventures of this adaptation would take the characters both to the Netherworld and the world of the living. This series portrayed BJ as something more of a bumbling hero as opposed to the darker movie counterpart. This show relied heavily on sight gags and all too literal wordplay. If you have not watched this series yet and you're a fan of Beetlejuice, you should definitely go check it out because all we can say is it's a really fun ride. Number 5. Back to the Future, the animated series. This is one of those entries that upon learning about it, you might think, right on, this is gonna be totally rad. Well, allow us to dispel this thought and crush those hopes for you because this series took a few liberties with the source material, deviating from it quite a bit. And not necessarily for the better, as it would have had 3 seasons instead of 2 if not for very low ratings. Let's talk about the changes that caused this animated series to fail. First of all, even Bob Gale, the producer of the show, has gone on record saying that the cartoon and accompanying comic book take place in their own what-if and alternate universes and timelines, even though it takes place right after the events of Part 3 of the cinematic trilogy. Amongst the changes, the series would see the return of Marty and the DeLorean, which now for some reason has voice-activated time circuits. It can be turned into a suitcase and travel through space. In this series, Doc Brown has two children, Jules and Vern, whom would serve as two of the show's main characters, and they use the time-traveling locomotive that was invented in the end of the trilogy. One of the few good things this show featured was live-action introductions to each episode, featuring the one and only amazing Christopher Lloyd. As an added fun fact, during these live segments, Bill Nye would be featured as the assistant to Christopher Lloyd's Doc Brown. Number 4. Men in Black, the series. This is another entry that would explore an alternate timeline from its source material. In Men in Black the series, Agent K never retired and J is still a rookie agent for the MIB. This series would take its time to explain more of K's past and only included limited canon from the films. Most of the episodes would provide their own standalone stories based in the MIB universe, while it felt like the basis was to explore more character development as opposed to continuing with the larger story. Another notable fact is that none of the original actors from the movies would reprise their roles as the animated characters. That being said, all in all, this was a pretty good show, especially if you're a hardcore Men in Black fan. Number 3. Ozzy and Drix. Spun off from the 2001 film Osmosis Jones, the series follows the adventures of Osmosis Ozzy Jones and Drix the Cold Pill as they embark on several adventures within the human body. In this adaptation, the pair is pulled from the movie's human character Frank via a mosquito bite and transferred into a teenage boy named Hector. The pair is pulled from the movie's human character Frank via a mosquito bite and then transferred into a teenage boy named Hector, where the two would help him get through the trials of puberty and growing up healthy. Once again, none of the original cast would appear in this animated series, and the stories were similar to that of other Saturday morning action cartoons. Another thing to note is that this series did not feature live-action scenes like its movie counterpart. However, it did utilize several of the traffic scenes from the movie. As well as inside-the-mouth scenes. This one falls in as sort of a meh entry. Check it out if you were a fan of the movie. Who are we to say? Number 2. RoboCop. Similar to the Mask entry from earlier in this list, this is another one we didn't expect, with RoboCop being the movie it was. However, surprisingly, it followed the movie rather well. This animated adaptation would see the mighty RoboCop facing off against various villains, sometimes hired by Dr. McNamara, the guy responsible for creating the ED-260 robot to prove RoboCop's incompetence and protecting his city of Old Detroit. Unlike the movie counterpart, the RoboCop in the series is much faster and more agile than his live-action version. Amongst some of the other changes included the traditional firearms were replaced by lasers and robots were more common thing to see in the world. This one is a straight-up action cartoon and does include a ton of violence, so if you liked RoboCop the movie, seek out this title and give it a shot. And number 1. Teen Wolf. Oh, what is it with making animated versions of movies that makes people want to change the continuity? Anyways, for our last entry, we're going to be taking a look at the animated series based on the 1985 live-action movie Teen Wolf. Yet another show that deviated from its source material. This series would feature Scott Howard along with his added-to-the-story cartoon family as they deal with day-to-day life and face adversity because they're werewolves. In the movie, Scott lived alone with his father Harold, but for the cartoon he had his grandparents and little sister living with him. However, the mother is still absent. The name of the town they live in for the cartoon would be changed from Beacon Town to Wolverton, a town that is famous for its constant werewolf sightings, making it a tourist trap. All in all, this show just had a weird vibe and a different feel from the movie, and the animation styles were just off. That being said, this one's not terrible, but it's also not fantastic. We say check it out if you've ran out of other things to watch. And with that, we've come to the end of the video. It's always funny to see how the creators of animated adaptations seem to take liberties with the canon. Anyway, I've been your guide, Bats, and this has been Macabgorium Labs' School of Boredom Extra Credit. 13 animated series based on movies. Be sure to check back next time. You never know what we have in store. And as usual, think for yourselves and keep it creepy.
We're almost there.
Why are we walking like this?
Hey, thanks for checking out our video. If you enjoyed this one and would like to see more of our weird, creepy, odd, eccentric, or strange content as soon as it comes out, please feel free to click like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. We'll see you later. Keep it creepy.